From Melissa Snover trying to make deals with only a 10% stake to her name, to the dragons messing up and letting approved food slip through their fingers, here are the biggest failures on Dragon's Den. In 2018, Melissa walked into the den with big dreams for her custom candy venture, the Magic Candy Factory. She wanted an 80,000 pound investment for just a tiny 2% stake. But you know what happened? She left empty-handed because she annoyed each and every one of the dragons. Turns out Melissa wasn't the major shareholder in her business, owning only 10%. The real boss was her candy compadre from Germany, who held a huge 90% through his own candy company, Katjes. The dragons got a little confused when they saw that Melissa's packaging had a mashup of both the Magic Candy Factory and her partner's brand. Eyebrows went up instantly, and Peter Jones wasn't buying it. He straight up said she was just a branch of his global operation, but Melissa was having none of it. She kept denying what he said and tried to convince everyone that she called the shots for the Magic Candy Factory, even with her 10% stake. She explained that her candy-making wizardry was the real deal because she was the first 3D food printer to get the official seal of approval for public and commercial use. Now, you might wonder why Melissa, being a successful entrepreneur, would trot into the den for help. Well, Jenny Campbell scratched her head too. But Melissa had her reasons. She wanted a dragon who knew the vitamin biz and could help her candy brand blow up even more. T.J. Lalvani saw Melissa's vision of using 3D printers. But when he found out she only owned 10%, he slammed the brakes, saying he can't go into business with someone he hasn't even met. Deborah Meaden took a peek at the shareholder agreement between Melissa and Katjes, and she also thought the whole thing was a huge disaster. But if you thought that was bad, let me fill you in on the pitch of Room and Boardroom. In case you haven't seen this one, it's from season 6. So there was this guy named Tom Rumble from Oakville, and he walked into the den with a super unique idea. He wanted $75,000 for 75% of his business. But wait till you hear his pitch, because his business was all about living and working in the same space. The concept was that not only would you be working there during office hours, but you'd also be eating, sleeping, and even showering there outside of work hours. I mean, I'm not a dragon, and I can tell you how much of a disaster that idea is. And, well, as you can imagine, the dragons wasted no time tearing it apart either. It was just too stupid for them to handle, and poor Tom didn't stand a chance. Not only did his pitch fall apart, but he also walked away without a deal. Ouch. It was one of those moments that makes you scratch your head and go, what on earth was he thinking? But even he didn't get as insulted as this next guy did. I mean, the pitch for Sap World was a train wreck. This one's from season 2 of Dragon's Den Canada. We met the Fleur-de-Lis trio, made up of Craig, Carmen, and Mike Lewis. And these folks had an interesting idea. They were pitching a special wine blend made from birch sap, and they walked into the den seeking a cool $100,000 for a 25% stake in their business. But their pitch hit a couple of major roadblocks. First off, they couldn't crunch the numbers and demonstrate that their business had that magical potential for success and scalability. And anyone who watches the show knows that the numbers are the secret sauce. On top of that, their product didn't exactly get rave reviews either. Former Dragon O'Leary straight up said their wine tasted like poo-poo. So with such a brutally honest critique, it was clear they weren't exactly set up for a deal. They weren't going to walk away from the den with a sweet deal in their hands. And it just goes to show that even with a unique concept, you need to have a solid business plan and a delicious product to win over those dragons. And just like the Sap World, another pitch that failed miserably because of a bad business plan was crowd-fanatic.com. Y'all, season 6 had its fair share of cringeworthy pitches, and here's another gem for you. Yaron Bazaz from Vancouver took the spotlight with his virtual debating website business. He came into the den asking for a jaw-dropping $500,000 for a mere 10% stake in his venture. Sure, his idea had some potential, but unfortunately, there wasn't much actual substance in there. The dragons were itching for answers, especially when it came to Yaron's outrageous $5 million valuation. They wanted to know how on earth he came up with that number, and to make matters worse, Yaron couldn't show any sales or revenue to back up his claims. Uh-oh. Without any sales or a solid revenue model, it was clear that this pitch was heading straight for disaster. And let's be real, with such a sky-high valuation and no sales to show for it, this pitch easily goes down in history as one of the show's worst. But you know what? Sometimes people come into the den with ideas that they fail to pitch correctly. And so, of course, the Dragons reject them. But the very same pitches go on to make millions. Take Exactly Limited, for instance. Let me tell you about this egg-citing pitch from the second season of the show. James Seddon, a true egg enthusiast, took the stage with his innovative invention, a waterless egg cooker. He was seeking a 75,000-pound investment to bring his creation to the market, but things took a turn for the worse within minutes of starting his pitch. James attempted to demonstrate how his egg cooker could whip up a perfectly boiled egg in a jiffy, but much to everyone's dismay, the egg that came out of the cooker was practically raw. Peter Jones couldn't hide his disappointment and urged James to recover quickly from the mishap. To make matters worse, when questioned about the faulty egg, James had no explanation. He simply admitted, "I haven't got a clue." But despite the disastrous pitch, Exactly Limited secured a European patent and even scored over 10,000 pre-orders online by the end of 2009. And believe it or not, the company's still going strong today, fully operational. Though that wasn't the only time both the Dragons and the people messed up. Pro Gaines is another example of that. Do you remember this pitch by Marco Hadjikypri? With confidence, he entered the den offering a 5% stake in his company, Pro Gaines, in exchange for £125,000. Pro Gaines was a healthy meal delivery service that had already achieved a turnover of $250,000 before entering the den. Things were promising, but then came a twist that dampened the Dragons' interest. Marco revealed that he was embroiled in a trademark dispute with another company, and that threw a wrench into the whole situation. The Dragons quickly lost interest, and to make matters worse, Marco found himself in a heated argument with Ms. Meaden, with her saying it was like arguing with cotton wool. Then came another blow. Marco backtracked on his financial figures and lowered his company's valuation by £1.5 million. This pissed off the Dragons even more. I mean, it was a roller coaster of a pitch, to say the least. And listen to this. Mr. Hadjikypri later claimed that he intentionally argued with the Dragons as part of his marketing strategy. Despite the disastrous pitch, there's more to the story. In 2015, it was reported that Pro Gaines was churning out an impressive 70,000 healthy meals every week. And you know the Dragons are not always right. We all remember the approved food pitch, right? In this one, the Dragons missed out on a golden opportunity. The founders, Dan Cluteret and Andy Needham, came up with the idea of selling out-of-date grocery store and supermarket items online. But the Dragons couldn't see the profit potential and passed on the offer. That the rejection didn't stop Dan and Andy, though. They were determined to make their business a success and got £400,000 in loans and investments from other sources, giving them the financial boost they needed. And their hard work paid off when they became runners-up in the 2015 Virgin Media Pitch to Rich competition, which scored them a marketing campaign worth $100,000. Fast forward to today, and Approved Foods become one of the largest online retailers of clearance products, generating over $4 million in annual revenue through more than 3,000 weekly sales. So there you have it. From the Dragons messing up and letting Approved Foods slip through their fingers, to Melissa Snover trying to make deals with only a 10% stake to her name, those were the biggest failures on Dragon's Den.